everyone. Welcome back. We're there again. We're there again. Tottenham do it to us again. Wow, what a game. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, anyway, and another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. I'm Craig. Chris is still in, well, I don't know if he's still in the stadium. He's on his way back to hotel, so hopefully he'll make it back safe and sound. So he'll be hoping to join us later on. He wasn't sure if they were going to get held behind at all because there was talk of the fans getting held back an hour and a half. So we'll just see. We'll see if Chris joins us. So hopefully we'll be able to. In this edition, we will, of course, be discussing the Galatasaray Tottenham game where Galatasaray have just beaten us 3-2. Could have been a lot worse. We will get into it. Before we do, we're live on YouTube, X and Facebook. So please get involved and let us know your thoughts on the game and how you're feeling right now as a Spurs fan. This podcast is also available on all audio platforms. We're very proud to be the most watched Tottenham channel, fan channel on YouTube throughout 2024. And I'm delighted to say we have been the #1 football podcast in 9 countries this year. So
wow,
it's something's pretty good. So we're doing something right. So hopefully we'll help you through the next hour or so. Bit of cathartism, is that even a word? Picking the bones out of the game, hopefully make you feel a bit better. Ricky's our wordsmith. I'm not the wordsmith. You know that. I'm sure all our lovely guests will make you feel a bit better as we pick the bones out of that performance. Galatasaray 3, Tottenham 2. Without any further ado, welcome back on the channel, Gary Maloney. How are you, Gary?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. To be honest, I'm kind of upbeat after that defeat because, as you said, it could have been double figures. So for me, I did think going into that game you'll make a lot of changes, and I did expect us to lose it. But to be honest with you, you know, when we went down to 10 men, we started actually playing decent football. So all in all, to lose 3-2, to come away from, you know, how hostile was that stadium and the fans was unbelievable. But yeah, apart from a defeat, you can't celebrate a defeat. But I'm just grateful we didn't, you know, it wasn't like another 7-2 type of game. So thankfully, yeah. So yeah, all good.
Good. Back with us, we've got the wonderful Ricky Norwood. How are you, Rick?
I am well, my friend. I am well. Absolutely crazy game. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of jumping into it in a weird type of way. Hopefully, I can bring some balance. Hopefully, I can bring some context. But it was a mad one. It was a typical mad one. But I've got to say, like, the way that we continue to fight and the way that we continue to try and get back in the game and weather that storm, I think is a massive positive tonight. So I know that we'll probably be talking about a lot of the negatives and the criticisms of this evening's game. But for me, there were a few positives tonight too. And I think they're massive for the long run. Not for tomorrow, but for the long run. So can't wait to get back in with you beautiful people.
Lovely. Rick, do you want to just take this comment from Paddy on the screen? I don't know if you can read that without your specs or whatever.
Craig, I heard a rumour that Ricky was supposed to meet Chris in Istanbul, but ended up in Watford.
He loves Watford.
Squash, please. Where's Watford? I've never heard of this place.
Never heard of it.
Talking about.
It's not true. It's not true.
No, made up.
Yeah, it's a made-up place.
It's a made-up place. It don't exist. Sorry, Watford.
Or something.
Look, at least we're smiling. At least we're smiling. Becky, you've got a smile on your face. How are you?
Yeah, hello everybody. Nice to be back. Yeah, I think similar to what Gary and Ricky just said, that could have been a lot worse. We could have been sat here when we were sort of saying we're going to come on the show, and you know, I was thinking, oh crikey, this is going to be quite hard work, and it could have been double figures. So I think, yeah, we've all sort of finished. I think obviously, you know, you don't celebrate a win, but the blip obviously fit well as well. I think other than that, we'd have kind of just been no injuries. Move on, you know, move to Sunday. So yeah, I'm smiling because I was kind of dreading sort of how we would talk it through. So yeah, I think it could have been a lot worse. So there's some green shoots, I think.
It's all very positive so far. This is not how I expected this all to be. It could change, couldn't it? So Gary, what just thoughts on the game overall? What did you? How do we even analyse that?
Right. I mean, I must admit, I did expect us to lose that game. I knew he'd make a lot of changes. Look, you know, some of those changes he was forced to make. I get that. But I still will come back to what I said to you earlier on today, Craig. I don't think you need to change the goalkeeper. I don't think we need to put Fraser Foster in there. Look, having said that, he made some half-decent saves. I'll give him that. I don't think personally he could do much with the goals that went in. So I don't really think Bakari would have saved any of those. But for me, you know, there was one incident in that game where the ball comes over and he just has to hold the ball and he drops it. And for me, that's the part where I say that's why you don't play Fraser Foster. I'm sorry. And I'm not just going to single out him because I think quite a few of the players had really bad games. I don't think Maddison looked great. You know, Son wasn't at his best. It's a very hostile and difficult place to go, Galatasaray, right? Also, it has to be said, the referee was so against Tottenham in that game. He really was. It was every decision was not going our way. But I think because of that, I would like to have seen us go a little bit stronger. But ironically, we didn't really start getting into the game. And I'm going to laugh when I say this. But when we went down to 10 men, we really started playing. And there was kind of a little bit of kind of similarities of the Chelsea game, right? And what's quite funny is I found myself going from the usual, like, I hate this club, it's an embarrassment. You know, how can there be fans out there that want to lose this game and think it doesn't mean nothing? To them thinking and turning around, looking at my boy and saying, we could have got an equaliser there with Kulu. Because, you know, when he lobs the keeper, if that's a bit more over to the left, we actually nick a free draw. It wouldn't have been deserved, but oh my God, I would have celebrated that like a win against Chelsea or Arsenal if we had got a draw. We didn't, but I must say, even though we lost, because it was only 3-2, and I still think we're going to qualify, right? You know, the games we've got left and stuff, we've got enough there to qualify. I get that. But I just find it really difficult to even be positive about a defeat because you know what I'm like, Craig. You know, even before the season starts and we're going to friendlies and stuff like that, I want to win every game as a Tottenham fan. You know, I find it quite, I don't know, I just don't like it when you get a lot of fans, you know, whether they be on forums, whether they be on X, you know, and they're like, well, put the kids out. This is a game, it doesn't matter if we lose. I think every game matters, you know. But like what Ricky touched on, I will say, I will give it to the players because when the changes were made and we dropped down to 10 men, they didn't kind of, you know, get swallowed up and hide. They really came out and went for it. And let's be honest, mate, you know, Galatasaray, it's not an easy feat. So all in all, bizarrely, I'm kind of quite positive and happy. And I think like what Becky said, put it to the side. You know, we've only lost one game in this tournament so far. No major injuries. Okay, he did rotate the team a bit, so, you know, players will be coming back. And I think if we follow this up with a really good, convincing win against Ipswich, I think that will be the key. You know, if we scrape a win or God forbid we lose to Ipswich, we'll feel very different. So I think that's kind of like where I am at the moment. It's a weird feeling. It's a bit like the Chelsea game. We lost, but we kind of felt all right, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, Ange Postecoglou's just had a press conference, or he's been speaking to reporters, shall I say, and he said, I just felt it was self-inflicted. We had real simple solutions out there to keep the ball. It wasn't that hard. We showed it with 10 men. We just needed to be stronger on the ball and play the kind of football we play every week. Maybe it was a little bit the changes I made in the environment and the atmosphere, but the moments that stick out to me was giving the ball away. We were playing through them quite easily with 10 men, exactly what you said, Gary. But with 11 men, we had nowhere near that conviction, and that was disappointing. So he's actually quite spot on there, Rick, isn't he? I mean, like I said to Gary, how do we analyse that? Was it the atmosphere, do you think? I mean, we know about the place. Did the players bottle it in that first half until they grew into it? What happened there?
I don't know. I don't think they bottled it at all. What I think is that it definitely had an effect. And I think, you know, if you was watching at home with your sound up, it was tough to watch. You know, and that's us being at home. I can't wait to talk to Chris and ask him what it was actually like in that stadium, because for the first time in a very long time, I did not hear the Spurs fans at all because they were drowned out. Not because they wasn't there and wasn't singing. They were just drowned out. It was a cacophony of sound in there every single time that we touched the ball. And that whistling and that sound, it was almost an anxious sound. It's a clever tactic, but it's almost an anxious sound to go make a mistake, go make a mistake, go make a mistake. And literally, it was exactly that especially in the first 20 minutes. You know, it was crazy. I've never ever. I mean, I've watched Galatasaray before, but I think it's different when it's your team.
Yeah.
So, but listening to it and feeling that energy through the screen, I don't know what it was gonna feel like on that pitch. You know, so look, you know, it's definitely that atmosphere definitely had an effect. And it's had an effect not just on Tottenham, but on many teams that go to that same stadium, you know, in front of that crowd. Yeah, it's famous. It's called Welcome to Hell for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
I feel that if we really wanted to win this game today, then we would have put out the very first team, the best first team that we could do, barring injuries. And for me, that stems from Vicario. I think Vicario gets unwarranted criticism sometimes, and I think tonight all Tottenham fans can see how good he is because, yes, Fraser Forster made some good saves, shot-stopping stuff, but with his feet, he panics me so much. It almost reminded me back in the day at the tail end of Lloris when we used to pass it back to him and just keep playing through him. When everybody knows, we're like, no, they're going to score. We can feel it. We can all see it. It's easy to kind of nick. It's easy to press. It's easy to get that ball back. And it just continued to happen. And playing that way, you know, I love the fact that we continue to play that way. But I think there needs to be a variation on Forster. I think he's better picking up the ball. And even if it's a throw out rather than with his feet. You know, that's an adaptation for him. But it was a signal to me that this game was almost, or I don't want to say sacrificed, but it's almost like, let's see what happens. Because of the long run. Because of the long run of this season, the amount of games that are coming up, and I know it's all about tonight's game, but the amount of games that are coming up, this is what I think the thinking is. You know, we're playing every 3 days. We've got a very tough Christmas schedule. You know, there's a lot of games coming. We've got, you know, the Man United, quarterfinal, Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
There's a lot of important games turning up real soon. And we've seen Romero out for a little bit. We've seen Van der Ven out for a little bit. Even Timo's out for a little bit. Richarlison's out. You know, Odegaard's out. So I think he's thinking long term tonight, and that's what he done. Playing someone like Forster and even like starting the kids in a hostile environment and against a very good team. They're a very good team. Just because they play in the Turkish league doesn't mean that they're not a good team. They play good football. They're unbeaten for a reason. They've got a world-class striker in Osherman up there. And they pulled us apart you know, for a long time they pulled us apart. I think they targeted the young ones. I think they targeted Bergvall and Archie Gray. Although there wasn't a lot of our seniors that stood up in and amongst that. We was pulled from pillar to post. And as you guys rightly said, man, it could have been 6, 7, 8, 9. But what I'm really proud of is and there are some positives that in amongst that storm, in amongst that madness, that we did continue that philosophy. Now, if we really wanted to win that game, the first substitution for me in the second half would have been Vicario, would have been Sarr for Bergvall, because Bergvall was just getting moved off the ball left, right, and centre. He couldn't do nothing with it. Do you know what I mean? And you would have brought on Solanke as well as a senior, hold it up, and Kulusevski. You know, you would have brought on your seniors at halftime. The fact that we didn't, I think, kind of said, all right, cool, let's just see what happens with this. Also, the amount of fantastic, amazing, I can't describe in words, experience that Bergvall took from that tonight. Also, Archie Gray took from that tonight. And Will Lancashire, you know, tonight. You know, him scoring his first goal away in that ground is a massive positive.
Yeah, unbelievable that.
You know, the fact that we weathered that storm for 70 minutes and then we went down to 10 men, we brought on our seniors. The most obvious substitution at halftime would have been Papsar for Bergvall for me. Like straight away, legs, energy, and a bit of defensive, but also can move it into their third of the pitch. We couldn't do it. We kept making mistakes. All our passes were short. we kept giving them the ball, but we continued to play our way because the boys are starting to believe, and this is where I think there's a massive positive here. They're starting to believe in this system. They're starting to do it regardless, and this is what Postecoglou wants. So I think on a whole, it's a 3-2 defeat, and nobody likes. And me, I hate a defeat, but I think there's so many positives to take from that tonight, and I think the boys will as well. After a day of going, even taking off Johnson and Son at halftime, what is that saying to you? Firstly, Sonny's just coming back, but let's save him because he's getting a torrid time out there and they were bullying him. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of the Galatasaray players were looking to bully as well.
Yeah.
Especially the young ones. They were getting under Will Lancashire's skin for a long time. Do you know what I mean? So, they saved Johnson and Sonny for the weekend straight away at halftime. So we was in a battle with our second, quote unquote, second team, but those that were given a chance and those that were forced to make an impression, like Madison or anyone like that, our seniors that were in there. And then suddenly our plan B was to flood the midfield, bring on our seniors. Even though we went down to 10 men, we brought on the striker, we brought on our best player of the season so far in Kulusevski, and we gave it a go. We still battled. We still gave it a go.
Don't you think that's so bad, panel? Are we not all sitting there thinking, do you know what? We could have actually come away with a draw.
This is what I was getting. Yeah, easy, bro.
I find it absolutely crazy in that game, isn't it?
You also got to remember how much time wasting that Galatasaray were doing, how many times that they dove. Yes, there were a couple of poor challenges from us, but the amount of times that they dove. I think
the ref was very biased. Don't you think it was very biased towards them?
I think he had a tough time as well, mate. I just think he had a tough time today. and he's a disciplinarian, so he's going to give it. They said that at the beginning. So, I think there's more to come from this. I think that if they take the positives from this and they kind of... If we had our first team out there tonight, I think we would have not only competed with them, but I think we would have won. So it was one of those that I think we have to take on the chin tonight.
I agree, Rick. Actually, I think if we'd had full strength team out tonight, I think we would have beaten them. Becky, coming around to you, just give us your thoughts on the game as well. What Alan says here, what's your views on this? Very naive, to be honest, when playing out from the back. I actually wrote that down, that our playing out from the back tonight was dreadful, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Glenn Helwell said on commentary that he felt that it was just kind of suicide because, as you kind of all alluded to so far, if Forster's not playing regularly, and bearing in mind we've got a completely changed up centre-half pairing, the whole kind of playing out from the back to Dragishin wasn't working. Now, listening to everything that everyone's just said, yes, Johnson and Son going off. I thought Madison was quite disappointing as well, and you need those kind of more senior players that have maybe played in that kind of atmosphere to help. Now, I agree, Sonny was getting kicked about, and Johnson, although he made a fantastic assist, was largely kind of pedestrian. But when they were playing out from the back and Dragishin wasn't really working, it just piled the pressure on. And I was like writing notes through the game, and I was kind of writing down the playing out from the back isn't working. Dragishin is just losing the ball, spilling the ball, and Bergwall was losing the ball. And yes, he's young and he's inexperienced, and I agree with everything what you were saying. They were kind of bullying them, they were sort of putting pressure on them. The atmosphere, I think, got to the ref as well. I think he is affected by that atmosphere and his decision making. And we were just getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and we were barely going over the halfway line. And that's why it was so wonderful to see Lancashire's goal, because really it was the first chance we'd had to get really over the halfway line. A fantastic kind of played advantage, and then a fantastic ball from Gray to Johnson, and Lancashire's there. And like I said, for him to be that young and that confident and stand there with his arms out in front of the the away fans, but also the home fans. But that was the only chance we can remember, because we were playing so deep because they just couldn't get out from playing out from the back. And then when you've got Madison and Bergwall not being able to hold the ball up, that kind of breakaway that we're normally seeing in the the beating of Villa and those sorts of games isn't happening. Because I can remember many times last year, before Bentancur got injured, he was that player that would retain the ball from Vicario. And if he didn't do that kind of duck a shoulder and turning away, and he was dispossessed, we were often kind of countered. And that was what was happening today. Bergwall couldn't hold it up. He couldn't get it out, neither could Maddison, and it was just this continual intense pressure, which is why we were all sort of watching it through our hands, thinking this is going to be an absolute cricket score. And you know, at half time I was kind of reading Twitter, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Forster's absolutely horrendous," and Bergwall, and you know, get these players off, and blah, 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 blah. But to be fair to Forster, it would have been a cricket score if we hadn't had him there in the second half. I think they just sort of shored things up. I think that substitutions at half-time, you know, Bentancur, Kulusevski, two of our best players this season to come on. I did think it was rather random that we ended up with Bergwall and Maddison on either wing, because if you've seen my tweets, I tweeted how we literally got one person up front, but they were obviously playing as wingers. But again, when Lancashire then gets sent off, Bergwall and Maddison come off because that's not working. And Solanke, I think a lot of credit needs to go on Solanke's shoulders as well tonight. Yeah. He put a massive shift in. You know, some of the kind of the hold-up play, I know we've seen it at home games, and those of us that are seeing him in the flesh are saying he's just so strong and he's everywhere, and it's great now that the goals are coming as well. But this is why we felt that Spurs were playing better with 10 men, because Solanke was like an extra player that we had lost in Lancashire, because rather than just getting scraps, Solanke was coming back and getting the ball, and he was holding it up and he was playing it around, and that kind of interplay really helped Basuma as well, and then Sarr was getting involved. And yes, I agree with everything that you said. If we had started with our stronger team, if we had Vicario in goal, I think it wouldn't quite have turned out the way it was. I do think that some of the choices that we've made in the Europa League this year have been strange. You know, Porro again has played full 90 minutes like he did at the week. He looked to be struggling a little bit at the end, but we didn't put Spence in the squad. So there's some sort of things there that you think, why has he done that? You know, Gray, brilliant. It's not his position. He played out on left back. Again, I think he kind of grew into the game as things got better. We are, as we know, so much better going forward than we are at the back. And when we've got pressure at the back, there's mistakes that are going to be made. But I think some of the things have to come on Ange here. You know, I was coming home in the car from school today, and it was saying, why are we not going strong in Europa League and resting players in the league? Why has he done it the other way around? Why is he not playing the weaker team against, arguably, no disrespect to Ipswich on Sunday? But I do think it was kind of, like we said, getting some experience, seeing how it's kind of playing. You know, he's hoping that Maddison is going to have a great match, and unfortunately doesn't. He's hoping that Bergwall will. So some of the things that maybe Ange is experimenting with, you can do in a situation where we've won the first 3 games. You know, I think that's why people are saying it was kind of like a free pass. It's not a disaster that we've not won, sorry, because we've started the competition so strongly. And I'm reading lots in the comments, and I've read a lot on Twitter tonight about, you know, we could have beat Galatasaray. They've had 10 days off, and they were massively tiring towards the end, hence the dark arts and the cramp and all those sorts of things. We could have beaten them. I think if we come up against them in the latter stages of the competition, you would hope that certainly if it was over 2 legs, that we would have enough to get past them. I think that's why. But I'm like most people. The first half showing was poor, and there was a lot of players that did disappoint me, and that's not necessarily the younger ones. You know, they knew the atmosphere was going to be like this. They knew that it was going to be tricky, and you know, some of them just didn't really perform. But again, as we've seen with Ange, when they need to kind of stick together and when they need to kind of dig in, they are doing so. And I do think, like I said, on a different day, we would have snuck away with a draw, certainly.
What do you think, Craig?
Pardon?
What do you think, Craig? Just because I know you're hosting tonight, yeah. But I know you're burning as well to
yeah. Do you know what? You 3 have summarised it. I don't really need to be here. I think you 3 could summarise it better than I ever could. I mean, it's weird. I've got a kind of weird feeling at the moment, because perhaps it's because of the whole league phase of the Europa League, and you know, I think we're 5th in the league still. We were before. Yeah, and so I'm not that disappointed. I think with the injuries we've got, I know Ange could have put out a slightly stronger team. He obviously could, but he has got that. You can tell he's got that Ipswich game in the back of his mind, and he wants to keep this momentum going in the league. This was always going to be a tough game against Galatasaray. I'm with Gary. Obviously, I wanted to win this game, but I didn't see it as a must-win. Do you know what I mean? I would have liked to. just actually, Becky, coming back to you, you did touch on Bergvall there. Do you think Bergvall might need a loan for the second half of the season? Do you think that would do him any good, or do you still, because he seems to be a little bit behind Gray in his development, which is not surprised in the league he's come from. Do you think it's worth giving him a loan, or do you think it's best to keep him at Spurs?
I've read quite a bit about that. People sort of saying that similarly to Archie Gray, because they don't think that he's going to get a great deal of minutes in the Premier League, but he seems to be playing left back in Europa League. Bergvall's more of a tricky one because obviously we've got more midfielders. I think a lot of people thought at the start of the season it was going to be Maddison was going to start maybe the Premier League games with Sarr, and then Bergvall was going to play the Europa League games. And I know we got hoiked off in the game when Dragoshin got sent off, didn't he? But then he played, in the Ferencváros game. So I think it's minutes. I think he's another player that, as he kind of, because he's still relatively new, isn't he? The problem with sending players out on loan is they just play different systems. And I'm quite a believer in staying here and getting used to Andrew's system. If that's what they need, and there's these certain rigid sort of structures of how everything that needs to kind of patterns of play. What's the point of sending him out to somewhere like Plymouth or something like that? Because it's a different setup. So there is arguments for and against. I think injury-wise we don't know what's going to happen to Bentancur still. If Bentancur, for example, is given a ban, would it be Sarr, Bissouma, Maddison, obviously Kulusevski, and then you've got Bergvall. So I think there are more factors into it. I think it's a bit like Dragoshin. His Europa League games so far have been a bit patchy, haven't they? There's been episodes of play where he's played well, and there's other games where he's kind of been largely non-existent. So I think there's arguments for both. I just really think, same with Lancashire. I don't really want Lancashire to go out on loan. I think when Richarlison was injured the last time, I thought that he would get more minutes, and then Richarlison came back in. And then to see Richarlison come on for Sonny on Sunday, although that ended up being a great idea, I really thought that Richarlison and Solanke would be the ones that would be changing. So, and now that Richarlison's injured again, is it Lancashire that's going to be, as we saw tonight, sharing minutes with Solanke? So again, seeing Lancashire go out on loan, I'm not necessarily think would be great for him. I think if they want to stay here, and Ange thinks they are part of this future process, then playing in the way that Ange wants them to play is you'd hope is more beneficial, certainly in training, and then Europa League, and then Carabao Cup, knock if we get further into it, and the FA Cup, and those sorts of games, rather than just them disappearing off into loan.
Yeah, some very valid points there, Becky. Yeah, because you're right, Angie's system is quite unique, isn't it? And you don't see many other managers playing that. So yeah, it could be beneficial to keep them around. You're right. Right, Gary, coming around to you. Gary, is that a can of lilt you've got there? I haven't seen one of them for years.
It's like a copy, but I absolutely love them. So it's called Tropical Blast.
Oh, right, okay.
You can get
other soft drinks are available.
Yeah, 6 cans for like £1.59, but they're absolutely amazing, these ones. But basically, it's a rip-off of Lilt, basically.
Isn't Lilt not a thing anymore? Haven't they stopped?
No, I looked it up, and this is probably more interesting than talking about Tottenham. I looked it up because I loved Lilt, right? Yeah. And Lilt was bought out by Fanta, and you can get it Fanta, and it's Fanta grapefruit and pineapple. That's Lilt. It's exactly the same. It's gorgeous. Anyway,
it's pineapple and grapefruit tropical blast. So there we go.
Right, okay, there we go. That's a nice little cutaway, isn't it? So, right, Gary, let's come in here. Let's get back on track. Let's talk about football. So obviously, this was the starting lineup for Tottenham tonight. Ange Postecoglou made 7 changes to the side.
Craig?
Hello?
Oh, all right. Well,
we're still here. Should we carry on?
Gary's there. Becky, you there?
Yeah. Oh, he's there.
Can you hear me?
You can now. You pan to the team, and then you pan to the team, and then you just stop talking.
I was obviously talking to myself. Oh, everything's going wrong. As you can see on the screen,
again, take two,
Craig,
mate,
Craig, was you trying to do where you can get these tropical blasts?
I was, yeah.
That was the last thing.
That's what it was, wasn't it?
Let's start again. It was so unprofessional. I should have waited till after. Sorry. And I was trying to do two. No, right, here we go. Right, so I'm not going to go through everything I was talking to myself about. As you can see, there were 7 changes. Forster, Porro, Dragushin, Davies, Gray, Bergvall, Bissouma, Maddison, Johnson, Lancashire, and Son. Obviously, Will Lancashire is making his second appearance in Europe after he made his debut against Ferencvaros. On the bench, we had Vicario, Austin, Udogi, Dorrington, Bentancur, Sarr, Kulusevski, Casanova, Olusesi, Williams, Barnett, Solanke. Gary, what do you make of that starting 11? I know we've kind of touched on it already.
Look,
what else would you have done different?
Yeah, well, look, I get some of the changes. Some of them, you know, you have to do it. I get that. But when I looked at that, the first thing that stands out is no Vicario in goal. This is the thing I don't understand, Craig, right, is he's a goalkeeper. You're not talking centre forward. You're not talking midfield, you know, left wing. He's not having a pace back like Van der Ven does and stuff like that. Like, you play Vicario in this game, you know, he plays again on Sunday, and then we got an international break. So for me, that's the one thing, you know, that I just didn't understand that. Although I did expect him to do that. Look, when I look through the team, obviously you look at Lancashire there and you think, well, you know, it's Galatasaray away. But, I mean, Becky touched on this. You can argue, right, look, it's a very young team. They're naive. You know, they haven't played much football together. But, in fact, the youngsters were the only good players in that first half. You could argue, you know, Maddison, even Son. I don't think Son had a great game. I know they kind of both set up Lancashire for the goal. But Son, I thought, wasn't great. Johnson, Maddison didn't have a good game. So, you know, Davis, look, bless him, he tries, but Davis made a few mistakes, and obviously Dragushin as well. It's just not really going his way at the moment. That you know, in that game, it was visions of the pass back from Van der Ven, and again, I was thinking, was it a lot to do with the back pass? But it wasn't. It was Dragushin and his control, and it was the same with the Van der Ven one. But overall, I mean, all I would say, Craig, and I think that just very quickly, one of the reasons why none of us feel bad after this defeat is we're in all competitions, right? We've just had a week where we've beaten Man City. We're in the quarterfinals against Man United. We've got a home tie. We've gone 1-0 down to Aston Villa and not a particularly great first half. We've come out and we've absolutely hammered them. And listen, you know, I was away watching that game, Craig, and when those substitutions were made, I was one of the first to moan and criticise and question him, but he got it absolutely right. So the only thing I would say, and it's the old age argument, and I'm on this side of the camp, you're either on one side or you're on the other. But for me, I think you go out and start with your strongest team. You try and get 1 or 2 goals up. You take control of the game. And then if you want to bring the kids on and stuff, great. But I will just emphasize it one more time. You do not need to change the goalkeeper. If you are changing the goalkeeper like for like, I have no problem with it. But listen, and Becky's right. You know, I 100% agree with Becky. He made some great saves. But she was also right when she said he can't play out from the back. And for me, a goalkeeper, you know, when you're talking about in a Europa Cup competition, I know we're not in the semis or the final. You cannot be dropping a ball when there's no pressure around you. He just fumbled it. No. You know, those sort of things. It's got visions of, you know, Ericsson when he couldn't beat the first man. Every time he tries to get a corner in, it's visions of that. You know, Sanchez, you know, what he used to be like for Spurs is that, you know, he's going to give a penalty away. And that's how I feel with Fraser Foster. But there's an argument with any other player in that lineup, okay? And yes, he did change it around. And you know, we said when we went down to 10 men, we actually played better. But you're not changing the goalkeeper in that game. It's unnecessary. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a valid point, Gary. Is Rick out of this starting 11? I'll put it up on the screen again. What would you have done differently with that whole squad? Would you have gone similar to what Ange went with, or would you have certainly started Vicario? Would you have started Bentancur? What would you have done? What would you have liked to have seen?
For me, bro, it was like as soon as I knew that it was going to be another change side as well, like this was roughly the side that I was thinking of. The only exception that I had was Saar in for Bergvall when I was thinking about it. It was a crazy one. The thing is that there's, this game and arguably the Roma game are the toughest games that we've got, really.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. It's like, if we really wanted to win tonight, I think Vicario would have started. Exactly what Gal was saying there. He is so integral to the way that we play, and I think we're lucky that we kind of stumbled on a keeper that is so good with his feet. I remember seeing a stat a couple of weeks ago that, I think it was like something like 90. I mean, and correct me, comments and guys watching right now, but I think it was something like 98% of all of these passes like find their man, and like they're not a danger. It's only 2%, and it is always that 2% that shouts louder, but it's that 2% that end up being errors. And he's so integral to the way that we play, and especially playing out from the back. But there were more problems really within that side. Now, the biggest thing with that side, and yes, some of the young ones done well, but like the critique of them being in this one was that, like, Archie Gray, for example, got done on pace. He got done, with a barge and pace. But what was great about him is that he never let himself like drop. He never let his head drop. He never gave up. He continued, and if he got beat on the overlap, then he was trying to get into the box or trying to defend a different way, try and get his body in the right shape to try and get a block in or to try and affect that attacker. So that was good. Bergvall continued to play. He had a couple of nice through balls, but just short, and they ended up giving it away. But mostly he got overrun in it. He was targeted by some of their most experienced. I think, the ex-Gooner in there was on him, and there was a couple of others that were on him. But like if our passes would have reached their destination, especially within that first half, I think we would have had a different outcome. I think we would have been in the game a bit more. But we continued to give it away. We continued to let Galatasaray have chances. And, they are the Man City, in a sense, of the Turkish league. They are used to winning week in, week out. They've got a solid system. And if we really look at the goals, there's some fabulous, fantastic goals. What I was worried about really is, and I suppose it's a good lesson as well, but the pressure that Dragusin and Davies were under tonight as a pair was tough. The amount of times that there was a cross that went into the box, and there were, a Galatasaray strike, it was either Osimhen or a Galatasaray player that was in between them, right in between them, and that cross found its man. I thought that was a bit kind of worrying in that sense. But again, this is going to be our partnership against Ipswich. So going through it, and those two continue to battle. There are another two that never dropped their head. Dragusin had a terrible game for 70 minutes. Terrible. Yeah. Like every time he touched the ball, he took it the wrong way. His body shape was open the wrong way. He got a deflection in that saved us going 4-2 down. But and he got a couple of blocks in, but then he grew into the game come 70 minutes because we do have that fitness, and we are a relentless side. Irregardless of what's happening, we are relentless. We keep going. And some of the frailties that I saw against Leicester being one, there was another one. Not so much Palace. That's a different one. But when we lose our discipline, when we get into emotion, Brighton, thank you. When we get into emotion, start chasing the game and start, just chasing shadows. That wasn't the mentality tonight. It happened, like Galatasaray got past us many a time, but that wasn't the mentality. They kept going, and they did grow into the game. And if the passes were just that much better.
I just ask very quickly though, as crazy as it is, right? And we probably should have got hammered. Was you there thinking we're going to get a draw out of this? Because I genuinely
was. Yeah.
Because some of the the play near to the end of that game, down to 10 men and that, there was a few opportunities, you know, and for me, when Kulu hit that ball and the keeper's committed and come right out, I thought that was it.
That's why they started going down, Gal. That Galatasaray knew as well. They were like, uh-oh. So
and the fans almost were getting frustrated, and that hostility that was on the players and everything else kind of changed towards their own players, because they were so frustrated that we were kind of controlling and dominating the game with 10 men. And that's, you know what?
You're right.
One thing I'll say about them, right? You know, you go, you have a great game, and then you lose to Palace. Then you get a convincing win against City, right? You then absolutely hammer Villa, and then you should have really been 7 or 8 down against Galatasaray. But then you're leaving that game at full time thinking we could have nicked the draw. That's why we love Tottenham, because you never ever know what you're going to get. And I can't predict. I know we'll come to it at the end, Craig, but I generally can't predict Sunday. I don't know what's going to happen. In that game, we could lose 2-1 or win 5-0. And that is the beauty of being a Tottenham fan. This club is so bipolar. It's scary. It's mental.
You're right, and I think you're right there. When Solanke, we'll obviously come on to the goals in a minute, but when Solanke scored, it shut them up.
What goal?
Well, let's save that for a bit later. Just Becky, just have your quick thoughts on the team. Everybody else giving their view. Anything else you'd have done differently or like to have seen different in that lineup?
No, and when you look at it kind of written down, for the players that we've got fit, if he didn't want to start Bentancur and Kulusevski, then that's a pretty decent, strong team. Obviously, with Solanke and Will Lancashire, but apart from the goalkeeper, with everybody available, that's kind of what we expected. The back four was probably as we expected it was. The midfield is always a rotation of a range of different people. Certainly in games like Coventry, when he brought Kulusevski on in that game. So yeah, it wasn't a massive surprise, I have to say, at all. No, I was delighted to see Lancashire playing. Obviously, we'd heard that Mikey Moore stayed back at home with a virus, because I think he possibly would. Yeah, he may have come on instead of when Son went off. But other than that, no, it wasn't. It's decent. It's fairly decent. It was a fairly decent side. I know we say it's got youngsters in it, but the youngsters have had minutes this season. It's not like that was their first time dropped in away at Galatasaray. So. You know, and
you said it yourself. You're the one that said it. The youngsters in that first half probably played the best.
Yeah.
So can't even really argue with that.
Absolutely. Well, look, we better get on to the match incidents. Becky, let's stay with you. Obviously, look, Osimhen I thought was brilliant tonight. He could have had 7 or 8 goals, and that is why I think we were chatting yesterday in the group, and I said I wanted Spurs to sign Osimhen when he was available for transfer. Obviously, he ended up at Galatasaray because I think PSG and Chelsea are interested, and never got done. He ended up Galatasaray. It was like the shock of the summer, wasn't it? So, he got a couple of goals tonight. But this first one, Becky, obviously, in the 6th minute, Akgun scored for Galatasaray. Obviously, they were all over us. Talk us through this goal. What happened with Spurs? When they were attacking,
it was a free kick first, wasn't it? It was a free kick that kind of forced us sort of push wide, and then everyone was a bit flat-footed, really, I think, and it was a great shot. I think Lancashire kind of turns his back on it, but I think they in commentary they were saying it was a fantastic chance and it's a fantastic goal. Yeah, for me, I was more disappointed with the second one. I thought it forced to seem very flat-footed for that one, but for that, for the first goal, I think if we'd been a little bit sharper at defending the free kick and how it kind of played out from the free kick, it wouldn't have even got to him. But then, he had so much space that it was a great one, and that's the great sort of goal that fuels the crowd. It really gets them going and builds that kind of momentum, because of it. Sort of like a worldie like that it really kind of boosts everybody, doesn't it? Which is detrimental to Spurs in that point, because heads did drop a bit, I think.
Yeah. Wasn't a great start though, was it? And Gary, coming around to you, obviously 18th minute, Mr. Lancashire pops up with his goal. Obviously, great move, wasn't it? What did you think when Lancashire put this goal in? Did you think we was going to go on and win the game, or could you just see it being one of those Spurs performances that we all know and love?
Well, I didn't think we were going to go on and win the game. No, I genuinely didn't. But I was thankful, and I was very, very pleased with that goal because it went against the run of play and the build up to it. And Son done that lovely nutmeg, done the player. He had to bring him down. There was no other choice. But then who sent it over? Who was that?
Great.
Amazing. And then you got Johnson does the touch. I mean, I thought Johnson was going to shoot personally. I thought he was, but I thought the awareness to see him just there, unmarked. And it's not an easy fit. I know he's in front of goal, but you have to think of the moment and where he is and who is the kid and the atmosphere and everything else. And he took it lovely. And to be honest with you, I was shocked because I didn't think we was going to equalise, if I'm honest with you. So for me, it was a great goal. Unfortunately, after that, it still just went one way. But you would have to say that goal and the build up to it and the way he took it was absolutely brilliant. And it was a good time to score as well because, they were just all over us. And like Becky said, that early goal, that's one thing you don't want to do. You want to try and sort of control the game, get through the first 10, 15 minutes, calm it down, try and get to half-time at least 0-0. Obviously, with Tottenham, we're never going to do that, right? But to get that goal and the manner we got it and the passing, I mean, that ball he sent over to Johnson was absolutely beautiful. The awareness and to see it and the floated ball over and Johnson's touch as well. And the finish was great. It was an overall great goal. And for him to get that, his first goal away to Galatasaray is just mental. For the first team is bonkers. I mean, he's never, ever going to forget that goal because for me, that's some first goal to get, mate, at a ground like that. That is something to be very, very proud of. I mean, what beats that? Okay, you get one at Arsenal, Chelsea away, maybe. But some would argue and say probably at Galatasaray is better. Brilliant.
He'll remember the game for all the wrong reasons as well, of course, because a little bit later
he will.
He had an early bath, didn't he? 31st minute, Rick. Obviously, we just got back into the game, and then one of the best players in the match for me, Osimhen. What happened here with Dragushin? This was the one Dragushin obviously made a bit of a meal of, didn't he? Talk us through this goal. What happened here, Rick?
Do you know what? I can't remember who passed it to Dragushin, but it was a bad pass. I mean, look at that. Look, there's 3 Galatasaray players on the attack and 1 Dragushin, one Tottenham player. I can't remember who passed it to him, but whoever did pass it to him, maybe should have gone back to Forster at that point in time. But it was a real...
Davis, was it, Craig?
I don't know. Somebody in the comments, I'm sure, will tell us.
I think it was Ben Davis.
It was a poor pass. It was a poor pass. It was a tough pass to control and then have 3 Galatasaray players on you. We just saw it there in that still, Yeah. So, the ball's come to him. He's not been able to control it. He's opened his body up and he's allowed the Osimhen to just jump in on him. And, they ended up scoring, but it was almost inevitable at that point because we was getting bombarded, and we just continued to give the ball away. So every single time it was they continued to have an opportunity, and it encouraged them. Every single, it wasn't just one opportunity; it was bunches of 5, and every 5 bunches they were like, "Let's go, let's go, let's go."
Crazy.
So it just encouraged that momentum at that point,
They had something like 27 chances in that game.
Yeah,
27
chances in that
they
game.
actually had 2 goals disallowed as well.
Yeah, they were offside, weren't they? There was offside as well.
And they had 27 chances.
I don't actually have the stats actually. Sorry, guys. We normally got the stats, but I haven't got them.
Yeah, they said over commentary it was 27 chances. Not necessarily because I've just read in the comment they're saying about the guy that scored the first one did blaze one in Rosette a bit later on. But yeah, it was just, I think Ricky's right. Every time they came forward in that period of play, you really thought they were going to score. And even straight after second half, when they'd made the changes, because they hadn't quite got into the game yet, it was the same. So for the first sort of 10 minutes of the second half, it was the same. And you're kind of like, something has to give. When we equalised, I said to my Dave, in the old days, we'd have kind of changed formation or played something slightly differently to kind of try and see the game out. But that doesn't happen with Ange. So I think that's why all of us said we were never going to hang on. because that's not what happens. It's just the kind of relentless kind of let's keep doing what we're doing and keep going, even when you can tell it's not working. That's what I think sometimes is frustrating, because you think it would be easier if we just did this or put that person in that position and just keep things still for 20 minutes. Nope, we'll just carry on and keep going and
do the high line, go for it. Get caught at the back. You know, it's painful.
But for the long run, it is a good test, and it was almost, it's almost like a lesson that we can take on the chin in this league, Europa League position right now. If we really needed those points tonight, I think we would have put out our first team, and I think there would have been.
But listen, look, Craig said it, and we all agreed. If you had like Romero and Van de Ven in that game, no matter what formation and how we played, we're winning that game. I generally think we'd win it, because we can do the high line then, and we're not going to get caught. But obviously, Ben Davies and Jackson, they're not got the legs like Romero and Van de Ven. So it's a totally different game when we're trying to.
I think it was also the wing backs though as well. I think a lot of the crosses were not being stopped really, and that's not a disdain on Archie Gray, but I think a lot of we're saying about Osherman, the second goal that he scores, and even the couple that he had offside, the way they kind of ping the ball over from the side and he's there like striker heading it in. That was a problem as well. I don't think that was necessary. I think truly if Romero had been in that game, he probably would have either got injured or he'd have ended up getting booked or worse, because he wanted to make sure that he was the one who was sorting that result out. And as we know, last year when that happened and we're under the caution, maybe we're slightly off the pace. It's Romero that's, I think that's why, to be fair to Dragishin, a lot of it was from playing out from the back today. But going back to his sending off in the Qarabag game and arguably to Lancashire when he got sent off today, it's because they're just slightly off the pace that they need to be at, and then they're making tackles that are not quite working. And Romero was doing that last year. He's not doing it this year, but he was doing it last year. And that's when refs are like, it's a booking. Well, it's because of the speed they're going at everything. It's, and I think had Romero played, there's a chance that it wouldn't have ended great for him. But I don't think they didn't really play that kind of ball over the top. It was more the wings and the crossing from the wings that was causing us certainly trouble in the first half.
I think you have to know that some of those bookings that the Tottenham players got, there was one example. I don't know who it was, but the tackle went in. The ref had no interest whatsoever giving a yellow card, and then the Galatasaray player started rolling over and holding his ankle. And all of a sudden, from the ref not interested, not going to give a yellow, is then brought in by the player and the fans and brings the yellow out. I saw it in slow motion, and I said to my boy, if he carries on rolling, he's going to book that Tottenham player. And there was it wasn't even a thought in his mind. So, unfortunately, you've got to deal with that when you're away to Galatasaray.
Yeah.
A lot of things would have been different if it was at our grounds, right? Even with that side that we put out, I think a lot of things would have been different. So, overall, we can't be too downhearted, you know what I mean? Like what we spoke about. We got players out, which is not out of choice. And we've come away from a game where really we've kind of controlled the last 25 minutes almost with 10 men, which I find... Yeah,
it's fitness, though, Gary, isn't it? Which we mentioned before. You could see, it just shows you how fit our players are, doesn't it? Becky, let's just stay with you for a second. Talk about this goal on 39th minute. Osherman gets his second goal. At this point, all I've written down here, because I was trying to cook dinner at the same time as watch it, it was just, I just put so bad, because 3-1 at that stage. I mean, it could have been a cricket score, couldn't it? What were you thinking when this third goal went in? Were you thinking the floodgates were going to open? Yeah,
I think I just wrote down Osherman again. That's what I wrote in my notes, because, like I said, it was, as you can see from the still, it's a cross that's come from the wing. It's one of those perfect ones that's between the defenders. We'd say so few goals like this in the Premier League. I know Chris Wood has scored a few recently, but it's a goal we don't really see anymore, where the striker gets up between the two of them. I just thought that Forster thought it was he'd missed, because he just sort of doesn't quite stretch his arm out. And when you watch it kind of slowed down, there's a gap between, obviously it goes in, there's a gap between his hand and the ball, and I think that's one that Vicario would have got. You remember the one at Villa when he went down really low to his left-hand side? Yeah. It just felt like, I was like, oh. And then you just think, crikey, this is going to be absolute carnage. And also, I think this was right on half-time, wasn't it? Or just before half-time as well, which is
39,
2-1's not ideal, but 3-1's just awful. But yeah, I think that again comes with Dragic and Davis. You know, they play together. I think when they come on, it's usually for bits of ends of games. You know, again, they've not played much together, and I think agree with everyone just said so far. Really, it's the kind of the speed and the kind of the awareness. And Osimhen is one of the best strikers in the world, and yeah, I think he will feel disappointed today that he didn't get a hat trick.
Yeah, 100%. Gary, who didn't perform today for you for Spurs? I know that it might be hard to single it down to 2 or 3 players because a lot of the team didn't perform for me. But I mean, for me, I didn't think that was Porro's strongest game today.
No.
I didn't think he was that good. I'm still not convinced. I know Dragicin's only young and he has some good games. He's a strong lad. There are certain times when he worries me, I'll be honest. He obviously made a couple of errors tonight. I still think he's a better third choice centre back than we've had in the past. I do. And I think he plays best with Ben Davies out of the, you know, I think Mickey van der Ven and Ramiro. So who for you really who do you feel let down by today?
I'd add to that Ben Davies. I didn't think he had a great game. And also, I mean, it'd be controversial. People won't like it, but I don't think, you know, I know he got the, you know, he kind of set up the first goal, the equaliser now, but I don't think Son had a good game either. You know, some of that can be fitness. You know, he's not probably fully fit. But for me, Dragic, I'm still going to say Foster, I don't think had a great game because I think he's a bit slow and he can't play out from the back. And at one point, he just dropped the ball when there was no one around him. He's just got a hold of the ball in his hand. He dropped it. And yeah, that's probably it, really. I'd have to say the youngsters, I weren't too disappointed with them first half. I thought they were all right. But yeah, Son, I don't think had a good game. Foster, Porro. There is one more there, but I can't think who it was. There was one more I was a bit disappointed with. But
Madison.
Overall, I just,
Madison, yeah.
Say again?
Madison, I didn't think he had a brilliant game.
Madison. Yeah, Madison, you know, that probably, out of all of them, was the one where I was really frustrated with because you would kind of think Madison would be able to kind of control that game and you probably see a lot more out of him. Okay, you can let the youngsters off a bit and stuff like that. But you could argue that the youngsters probably commanded that first half more than what Madison did. So for me, yeah, I'd add Madison to the list, if I'm honest with you. And I'm a big fan of Madison. And look, he was great last week, you know, well, in the week with Villa. But it's just what it's like, unfortunately. Madison has been not very consistent, unfortunately. Since he's come back from injury, he's not really been like the old Madison. There is a player in there, we know that. But you could also argue that with Son, Craig. And I know Son is coming back from an injury, but even when he wasn't injured, you know, and he was playing a lot of games for us, he's not the Son of old, unfortunately. And I know people don't want to hear this, you know, but he's not. You know, he's not got the pace and he's not got the confidence and stuff. And I don't know if that's because, you know, what is he now? Nearly 32, is he now? Whatever, he's slowing down.
32, I think. Yeah. 32.
But Son of old, from like, you know, you think of Son from 4 or 5 years ago until Son now, when you see him on the pitch, he's like a different player, you know? But I don't like to say it about Son because I love him. Like I love Madison, like all the players, you know? I want them all to perform well, but I can only say what I see. And for me, Son and Madison in particular this season, and to a certain extent, Porro, not really been that great, you know?
The thing for me for Madison is that
it depends where you are as well. If you're home away, what team you're playing, it can make a big difference, you know, and what system you set up in. So it is what it is for me, you know.
I think for Madison is that he will start to notice. You could see his body language on Sunday, although yes, he scored the free kick and it was brilliant. And then there was that clip of kind of Ange going over to him. You can see that it is affecting him, that he isn't starting and he's really struggling. And I've read a lot today about people saying that Bergvall and Madison were playing for their minutes today, and unfortunately both didn't do brilliantly. You know, we know Son is going to play. If Son's fit, he's going to play. Certainly at home games, I think I agree with what Gary said there. I think maybe because of his pace, lack of fitness, he is a much better player at home when he's got the home crowd behind him. There's no getting away from that. And I said that at Palace when I was at Palace. I said, we're moving on. We're probably only going to see Son in home games now. But I think Madison and Bergwijn were there to fight for their minutes. And unfortunately, they didn't really grasp that with two hands. So Madison is probably worrying about his future because I think Basuma and Bentancur, certainly second half, I thought were fantastic. Sarr was superb on Sunday. So again, if you're thinking Maddison and Sarr and that kind of interplay, Kulusevski again is having a superb season. It's all kind of, there's 4 players we mentioned before we even mentioned Maddison. So he is probably worrying about what's going to happen. And then when he got flung out on left wing today for about 5 minutes and barely touched the ball, that wasn't a solution either. So Maddison, you know, I'm reading in the comments, people say that Maddison will play on Sunday. Will he play on Sunday? But if he does play on Sunday, you'd hope in a game where he's not going to get kicked about, he'll show some flair, and hopefully we will see the Maddison that we remember from last season. I think Maddison is also a player that there are certain games when he gets kicked about a bit, doesn't have as much influence, but when he's able to play and he's having that opportunity to be our creative player with Kulusevski, it's a fantastic thing to watch. It's a bit like Son. He's not consistent enough this season, and again, you know, I agree with Gary saying it's since he's been injured. But I've got Leicester friends, and they say the same thing, that he's great. He gets injured, he comes back and he struggles, and then you lose him pretty much even when he's fit for the rest of the season because he's not the player he was. Then he has his pre-season, then goes again. He's also fighting for his England place, and at the moment he's struggling. He is really struggling, and I think he's a bit of a confidence player, like a lot of these players that are kind of flair players. We saw it a little bit with Basuma last year when Basuma got sent off and he struggled in the games that he was returning because he's so desperate to get his place back. And it's almost like they kind of over-try. You know, you can almost argue that that's what's happening with Dragishin. Some of the kind of the decision-making is poor because he's desperate for his place. And we saw it with Basuma. And I think we're seeing it this year with Maddison. Basuma this year is much more relaxed. I think he seems to understand that it's kind of him and Basuma. You know, they've got kind of a good way between the two of them, sometimes playing for each other and also playing together. And I think with Maddison, his confidence is gone. It was great to see that goal on Sunday, but I didn't see that goal and think, oh, that means he's going to play the next 4 games for us. I really think it's a squad rotation, and I like it being a squad rotation, and I don't like people saying, oh, he's been dropped. Maddison's been dropped. I think it is a rotation thing, but equally there's going to be some games where he isn't the first person that's picked in midfield. Yeah,
it's good points, Becky. What do you make of Maddison, Rick, leading on from what Becky said there? Do you think, because for me, I agree, he's been inconsistent. He's almost, do you remember when Kane used to be out for a while? It took him 5 or 6 games to get back up to speed. But Maddison's just not quite. I mean, there've been glimpses, hasn't there? But he's not quite hit the heights of the first 10 games last season. Do you think that's going to be an ongoing problem? Because he is fighting for his England place, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he is. But these things should be motivation. You know, these things should be the fire that is put under him to bring out those performances. You know, Becky's absolutely right. Tonight, you know, especially Maddison, was fighting for minutes, fighting to kind of, you know, make an impression. I mean, second half he came out with the armband on, you know, so he's there representing all of us. You know, he's there representing the team. He's there being a representative of Ange as well, and it was tough for him tonight. He got overrun. He got lost. There is a dynamite player. We know there's a dynamite player. We've asked for somebody like Maddison for a long time, and I mean, I don't know what it's gonna be, but like I'm not gonna write him off. And a bit like Brennan Johnson, you know, Brennan Johnson, he had all of those kind of doubters for a long time, and then something clicked, and you know, he's looking, he's on fire, isn't he? He's in form. So I would hope that Ange and himself can sort it out. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's been particularly terrible. But like Gal said there, you know, we've seen flashes, but he hasn't had the influence on the games that he had in those first 10 games last year. You know, he hasn't been as dominant as he was last year up until that injury. You know, and look how lost we was without him after that injury for a long period of time. And we waited and we got him back, and then we just was like, it was out, it was off. So I think he's determined to get back to that form. I think he got a taste of England. I think he got a taste of the good life and the spotlight at Tottenham, and I think he wants it back. But you know what? Nothing can be given to you. You have to work for it. You've got to fight for it, and you've got to show up when given your opportunity, and that's all he can do. And, you know, if he continues to do that, I think he will have influence in games. Maybe he does become an impact sub. Maybe winding them up a little bit and bringing them off the bench. Maybe that's the tactic that we use, you know. I do think he's still a creative, flary type of guy. And I do think that we can see that Maddison again. And hopefully a better version of that Maddison for going through this period of time. But it's up to him. It's up to him. If he goes on and starts sulking and starts throwing like, you know, like moody episodes in training and becomes that type of guy, then, you know, the writing will probably be on the wall for him. But I don't think so. I think it's a family unit. I think they're all fighting for each other, and he's having a tough time. I think he got lost tonight. And he didn't have the influence that he wanted to have. If it was a fight for his minutes, then it's probably he lost that fight tonight. But yeah. I'm not saying he won't be given another chance. He will be, and it's up to him. It's totally up to him. He's a fantastic player in there. It's just finding the right rhythm for him and finding the right moment for him to kind of just click into gear. And yeah. I think he'll be on fire.
Yeah. Becky, let's come around to you. Half-time came, 3-1 down. Johnson and Son off. Bentancur and Kulu on now. Obviously, Kulusevski, for me, has been player of the season this year. Bentancur, I thought, some good games, but I thought today it certainly changed the game. I wouldn't say he changed the game, but we look such a better team with him on the pitch, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who's my favourite player is Son, my second favourite player is Bentancur, and I've said that for a long time. So often I'm kind of bigging up Bentancur. I just thought that the kind of, as I said before, the interplay with Bissouma just seemed to work so much better. Obviously, you got Kulusevski. I think for that initial substitution, I think it was a bit random. You had Bergvall on one wing and you had Maddison on the other. And then when that changed back again and they weren't there, it kind of even showed even more how influential Bentancur was. He was tracking back. He was making interceptions. He was kind of interplaying Sarr when Sarr came on later as well with Bissouma. I thought it was a nice touch as well when their player went over injured, when they thought that Forster had injured him and actually just hurt himself. He's probably had a similar injury to Bentancur. Bentancur kind of came over and was sort of looking after him, because I thought he's sort of, I think he kind of gestured, telling him what not to do. For example, don't get up, don't walk on it, and all the things that Bentancur did at Leicester. He was sort of helping him. But yeah, I think it's a tricky one again. I think he's played so well. He's coming back from all the troubles of last year. He's really kind of coming in onto his own. He doesn't know. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of his ban. I said at the start of the season, I really saw, as I kind of intimated before, that Bissouma and Bentancur would kind of be like the squad rotation. But now we're increasingly seeing them playing together. And I think there was a game, it may have been Villa, I can't remember. The games, that's a great thing about the games, come so thick and fast, but I do kind of, they sort of start to blur into each other, is that the last time they played together, I said, oh, it's Bentancur and Bissouma playing together, and it's working really well. That's freeing Kulusevski up. When it's Sarr instead, if Kulusevski's gone onto the wing, he's kind of holding everything together. And he just reads the game so well, and he's getting stronger. And I think his interplay with Solanke's coming on really nicely as well. You see sometimes it's sections in the middle where Solanke's kind of got his back to goal and Bentancur will kind of use him. I know we're not talking about the same goal, but the goal against Villa when it was sort of played through, then to Kulusevski and then to Solanke, and it's all kind of working really well. The problem with tonight is that when you've got the high press and maybe some of the tackles that are flying in, it makes it more problematic. But then when that kind of all sort of calmed down a bit, you could really sort of see Bentancur spraying balls all over the pitch. And I think there was a few times when, even for the goal for Solanke, it kind of went over to Porro and then Porro to Solanke, and that kind of came about Bentancur winning the ball back in the middle. And yeah, I think Kulusevski's had a superb season. I think Solanke's having a great season as well. But I think Bentancur is just so important for us, which is why, you know, we'd like to kind of know what's happening with his ban. But while we've got him, he's really important.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to say Bentancur is almost more captain material, you know, because I was watching him directing and shouting at the players and telling them where to go and stuff like that, which you want kind of what your captain to see.
Yeah, considering he doesn't speak much English as well, because I've said this to my job about Romero. You know, we just said today, you know, when everybody wasn't kind of playing, someone went off. Maddison comes out second half as captain. Maddison goes off. We've got no Romero. Davis is captain, and then sometimes when Davis isn't playing, Vicario is captain. But I think you're right. I think Bentancur, Romero, they are leaders, but it's the language barrier. I think is the problematic thing for them. Is that it can be lots of hand gestures and pointing and things. I noticed Basuma also. He often kind of has a bit more of a vocal kind of approach, and I think reading in the comments we were saying in the first half certainly about those more senior players that probably didn't step up. I think Basuma kind of grew into the game as well, and he's certainly one that you can kind of see has that kind of captain material, certainly for the younger players. It just took such a long time, like we said, it took 70 minutes and to go down to 10 men to kind of get going, really, unfortunately.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, 69th minute, Gary, Solanke. What a lovely goal, wasn't it? It was a lovely cross from Porro. And then this little tried to get it right at the point. I mean, that I don't know what you call it. It's like back heel or
like a back heel. I don't really know, but it was perfect. It was brilliant. I mean, he's been really good. I mean, I think maybe he's not got the credit because he's not got loads of goals, but the work rate and the stuff he does off the ball and his running is unbelievable. He's been really, really good for us. But as I say, I think because he's probably not got as many goals as maybe people would have won. That might be why. But everything about that goal, and then you're at a point in the game where you're thinking, can we? Is it possible? You know, and it gives you the hope. And that's what I do love about Tottenham. As much as they can frustrate me, and you know they're playing out from the back and you know conceding so many chances, they always have it in them for a goal. You know, and this is the thing, you know, and look, we're not going to dwell much on the old managers, but I can remember going to a lot of games where, okay, we might lose 1-0, we might win 1-0, but both games were as bad as each other. It was a boring watch. You know, I can remember being at a specific game, we beat West Ham 2-0 and I almost fell asleep. And I remember leaving the ground thinking we've won, but it was so bad. You know, so there is that to take into it. You're never, ever going to get a dull game under Ange. And going back to Solanke, I think he's been really, really good for Tottenham. I've seen a lot of mixed opinions on him and stuff like that. But I do think maybe people are starting to change their opinion of him now because he's getting the goals. Whereas before he was getting the goals, Craig, I personally still think he was doing really well because his work rate and his running off. It's not always about goals, but I know that comes into it. But really pleased for him. And at that stage, when it goes to 3-2 with such a great goal, you start thinking, you know, are we going to get something out of this game? And that is the beauty of Tottenham. You know, I go back to like the Chelsea game. You know, it was mad, down to 9 men. But you know, I mean, who equalised in that game? But it was disallowed. Was that Dyer? I think it was, wasn't it?
With the header.
Yes,
that
was the volley.
It was the volley.
I thought it was a volley, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a volley by Dyer, and it was millimetres, and we'd have brought that back to level terms. And it was a little bit like that tonight, you know, for as bad as we were, like what Becky said, you know, okay, it took to go down to 10 men. We've got about 20 minutes, 23 minutes left or whatever. And we created some great chances. And I'll tell you also what you said, Craig, and Becky and Ricky. Bentancur was a lot to do with that because some of him's nicking the ball off them and he's playing midfield. There was a certain couple of times, I don't know if you remember it, where he just completely turned and twisted the player with his footwork. And it was unreal, you know. And on another day, we probably could have got a draw. But I have to be honest and say it's a fair result that we lost because, you know, if we would have got a draw out of that game, could you say we deserved it if Cooley's one goes in and it ends all? I don't know.
No,
maybe
you probably couldn't.
And we kind of like waved the storm, but it would have felt like a robbery, wouldn't it?
It would. Well, anybody listening on audio, Chris, just put a message on screen. saying thanks to me for covering. Absolutely no problem at all. He's back at the hotel now, safe and sound. He did get out of hell, and he'll be back on Sunday against Ipswich. So that's good news indeed. Just going back a few minutes, Ricky, I'd put here Galatasaray were dominating 60th minute, just before obviously Solanke came on with Sarr for Maddison and Bergvall. Lancashire gets a red card. Now, I don't blame him at all. I mean, obviously, you could see the look on his face for it, couldn't you? He looked devastated, didn't he? You're on mute, mate.
Sorry, Governor. He was devastated because he was having, a pretty good game, really. All in all, he had not just his goal today, but he had a couple of shots. That if they just would have connected a little bit better, they could have been opportunities. I mean, but you know what I love about Will Lancashire right now? He was up for it. He was up for that fight. When he scored and he stood in front of the away crowd with his arms up, and he just looked at him. He was up for it, And I like that. He looks big. He looks strong. He looks up for the fight. He's got a good touch about him. I'm excited about him too.
Yeah.
There are shades of Harry Kane in him. There are shades of that. I do see that in him. I'm not saying he is him. I'm not saying he's going to be him, but I'm just saying I just see similarities in him. And even that, Galatasaray, a couple of their defenders, a couple of their midfielders were just continually trying to bully him in the sense of like just move him around, shake him about, poke him, dig him. There was a lot going on. They were on his back at times, and it was almost like a senior pro, wetting his finger and putting it in his ear every 2 minutes. At one point you're gonna snap and go, you know what? Yeah, I've had enough. You know what I mean? And I think that's almost what happened to him. But again, good lesson for him. He's going to feel that disappointment after having the adulation of scoring in front of that crowd. And yes, he will remember it in days to come for the good things. But it's a lesson. It's a lesson. And that's what we get with the young ones. You can't blame them. They've got to go through it. You've got to fall to understand not to trip on the rock when you're going that way to the shop. Do you know what I mean? So, you got to learn these things, So I think he will take it, and I think Ange and the coaching staff will kind of embed that lesson in him. But don't take away from his fight, his fire, his spirit.
Yeah,
he had a lot. He had a point to prove tonight, and he was determined to prove it. If we would have got the ball up to him a bit more, I think. Who knows? He could have popped in another one.
Great goal.
Great goal. But with the few chances that he did have, I thought he was impressive, and I thought that he held the ball up as well. And it's a tough place to be, as we've said. Yeah. And it's a very experienced side. Those defenders that they've got, they're big Davison Sanchez. He's an experienced defender. It doesn't matter what he was like with us. Galatasaray, he's lauded over there,
Yeah. He played well tonight, didn't he? He did play well, I think.
We always knew he'd have a good game, didn't we?
But he did last year when they played, didn't it? When they played Arsenal, I thought he was the year before when they played Bayern Munich. He
had a good game.
He may have given away a penalty in one of them, I seem to remember, but he also was there when he was needed to be, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, get a bit of feedback. I think it might be. Could you just turn your volume down a little bit? I think it might be yours, mate. Thank you very much. I think we nearly got through the game. Thankfully, Becky. I mean, the only thing to say that Kulusevski chance at the end, when he was.
I think. Yeah. So it was kind of, wasn't it? It was. So this is what I was saying before about playing differently when we kind of trying to see games out. I think Forster was playing out and oofed it forward, and then somebody hit it long, didn't they? Which again was surprising. Now that Lancashire's been sent off, we've got no kind of real focal point. So Glenn Hoddle's on commentary going, "Why is Spurs still playing out from the back? We need to." And I wanted to kind of say, well, we were playing out from the back when we had a big target man. We've got no target man. We're not going to be plonking it up, but we've got no target man. So it's definitely a good change. Anyway, the one time they did, their goalie was miles out of it, wasn't he? Headed it, I seem to remember. And then Kulusevski got it onto his left foot, and we all watched this at home, didn't we? And Glenn Hoddle, you can picture him kind of almost out of his chair, the noise that he makes.
Yeah.
I think, like we said, if that had gone in, it would have been fantastic. It would have been one of them definitely snatch, grab, and go sort of things. But yeah, it's a shame because I don't think we would have wanted it to fall to anybody else, really. You know, Kulusevski, he last year was cutting in on his left foot. He can hit them with his left. I think it was just a shame, but it would have been fantastic. This game is, I know you say, I'm reading the comments, some people are like, we've lost the game, no one's been injured, you know, Lancashire only missed one game, move on, forget about it. But actually, there's quite a lot. You know, my Jack went out to basketball training, he came back, and he missed the second half, and I went, apart from having a penalty, that game had everything. It's one of those games where there was just loads in it. And, you know, I know we had to have Sam Matterface on commentary, but he was sort of saying, oh, you know, you always get a decent game with Spurs. There was a lot going on, and I thought saying, yeah, little old Tottenham that everyone's always sort of knocking. That's why we get picked for matches, because there's always something going on. Like Gary said, you don't know what's going to happen. We're never going to have a 0-0, let's be honest. But are we going to have, you know, 5-0s, 5-alls, like Palace, where no one turns up, or a game today where it takes 70 minutes to go 10 men until we start playing, and you just don't know what you get. And like I said, they just kind of pull us back in. And, you know, a good thing about I've said this before, the games being thick and fast, is that we move on, a bit of a recovery. You know, we've got Sunday, which, you know, if we can't beat Ipswich at home, then we are in trouble, aren't we? So I'm hoping that there's been enough rotation that we can do enough to get through with Ipswich, which we should. And then we've got the international break, you know, and we kind of reset a bit, don't we, and come back from that.
Absolutely. I have to think now, there was a little bit of me that thought with that Kulusevski chance when the goalkeeper's out of line, I thought, if that was Harry Kane, we know that where that was ending up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have to mention him every podcast. I don't apologise.
But you're right, though, because it was shades of Harry Kane, wasn't it? You know,
it was again, halfway line. I can't remember where was we at, in Singapore, America, or somewhere.
He got in the last minute, didn't he?
Yeah, unbelievable. He done one for Bayern, of course, this season as well, or last season. So anyway, nice segue there by Becky into Ipswich game, because of course we've got Ipswich at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. This is the current league table. Spurs are in 7th. And if results go our way, as we said the other night, we could actually end up 3rd. But, you know, to flip side of the coin, we could actually end up 12th if results don't go our way. And Ipswich obviously are in the relegation zone at the moment on 5 points. So, Gary,
having not won yet this season as well, that's the only thing, the only little thing in the back of my mind is I didn't say it, Becky. I deliberately didn't say it, and now you've said it. You've done it.
Gary, we've got to win this game. It's a must win, isn't it?
Look, we got to. I know it's quite nerve-wracking because they're sitting right close to Crystal Palace, so we're thinking, oh God, please no, and they haven't won this season. No, I take it. No, but look, we'll be fine. You know, we'll be fine. I think even if it was at Ipswich, we'd still be fine, because Ipswich are no Galatasaray away. And I get, you know, Dr. Tottenham will see you now. I hear all those things. I get it. But I genuinely just can't see us losing to Ipswich at home. I really, really can't. Look, the most I could give you, for all the ones that are saying Dr. Tottenham, we might win it 2-0 or 1-0 when we should really put 5 or 6 past them. I think that might be the only frustrating thing that you will see. Sorry. And we'll probably concede, because that's what Tottenham do, okay? So we may well concede. There's even a possibility that we could go 1-0 down against the runner play, which is typical Dr. Tottenham. But we are 100,000,000% winning that game. And I think we will win it by 2 or 3 goal kind of, you know, margin. So I think we'll be absolutely fine. And then, you know what? You kind of take Galatasaray out of that and you think about, you know, beating City in the quarterfinals, coming back the way we did against Villa, real strong win, and then beating Ipswich, then international break. And like you said, you know, I think we need a draw with the Arsenal game. There's a couple of things that have to go our way, which we know they never do, when we say, oh, if we do this and if that, but it never quite happens. But if we take care of our business and just get a nice win. We don't get no sendings off and no injuries. Will be lovely when we come back, because hopefully we'll have Van der Ven back then, won't we, as well? Will he be fit after that?
We should have for the City game. Gary, score prediction for Sunday then. What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 3-1 Tottenham, only because I do feel that Tottenham will win it and will win it comfortably, but I think we will kind of squander a lot of chances, and we probably will concede because we're Tottenham. So I'm going to go 3-1, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a really, really big win. But I'm going to go 3-1. Cool.
Okay, Rick, anything to add after that? I mean, look, we've got to beat Ipswich, haven't we?
No, we've got to beat Ipswich. and I'm with Gaz, absolutely, that we're 100% going to win that game. Do you know what I mean? We're going to put everything, all of the first team are going to be back. I think we're going to hit them with pace and with energy. And even when Ipswich do score, it's not going to change our game. You know, we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to show the same philosophy and the same will to go and win. And for me, bro, it's going to be a 4-1 win. I'm going 4-1 Ipswich,
right, okay.
You know, against Ipswich and back to winning ways in the league.
Well, I'm going to go just before Becky gives her prediction. I'm going to go 4-0 Tottenham. I think we're going to keep a clean sheet. So
wow,
okay, yeah,
possible.
I know that's brave. Becky, what do you think about the game Sunday, and what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I was similar. I was going to say kind of 4-0, 4-1. The kind of scoring for this season has been such a kind of a pattern at Spurs. The thing about Ipswich is they're not going to have played in an atmosphere like at Spurs when it gets going. I know because sometimes it can be a bit flat early on the matches, but we saw at Villa how when it's needed, it really does get going. I think also Ipswich don't score many, so they nearly won their last game, and I think it was Leicester, wasn't it, equalised in like the injury time, so they aren't going to go like 3-0 up or anything on us. So I think even if they do score, someone put in the chat 5-2, I think, you know, I think they possibly will score one. There's a similar sort of thing today. If Davis and Dragishin haven't kind of quite got things, you know, Romero with his sore toe, you know, they could score, but equally, I think we have got enough to kind of see them over. Like certainly with teams in their first year in the Premier League as well. Also, in terms of fitness, I think we will kind of towards the end of the game, unless there's loads of lag from tonight being out in Turkey, I think we will be able to see them fitness-wise. So that kind of last sort of 10, 15 minutes, I'd imagine we'd sort of see them off. So yeah, and I think if we can't beat Ipswich, then we don't deserve to be in top four. I've said this before. I know we need lots of results to kind of go our way, but that's why Palace was so annoying. Is we had the opportunities to be further in the table and we just didn't show up. It was just, but I don't see that at home. We are a different beast at home. So yeah, I'm looking for a positive, big scoring game. And also, it'll be the first time in ages that we've won before an international break. I think since the international break, we've lost. And then, of course, it's just 2 weeks of just drama.
So, horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, let's have a win. International break. And then we've got City the other side of it. City's the other side of the international break as well, which is that we know. I've got friends whose son City, and we are their bogey team. We just are.
But you have to mention, I mean, City got absolutely hammered the other night, didn't they? So, you know, that's not a really difficult game going into. You know, we can go up there and win. We've done it a few times. You know, remember Harry Kane's last second header? We can do it.
It's not a bad time to be playing them. It's not a bad time to be playing them. Well, just as we say our goodbyes, obviously put in the chat where you're watching from. You know, I always like to see where people are watching from, so stick that in. Gary, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Not an ideal result, we know, but I think we're all kind of got smiles on our faces, bizarrely. Where can people find you, and what you're up to at the moment, mate?
Well, you know me, I'm always working away. I'm on stage somewhere. Listen, I'm chilling. I just came back from a week in Tenerife. It was absolutely amazing. I do need to mention that while I was away, I mean, the amount of Man City fans and Arsenal fans I was around while I was on holiday, and as you can imagine, I proper wound them up. I had the full beach towel over the table with all my cheeky Vimtos and vodkas out, and boy, when we won those games, the whole of Tenerife knew about it. So I loved it. So yeah, listen, look, you'll always find me on, you know, I'm lucky enough to be invited on here loads, Craig. So thanks to you and to Chris that always get me on here. Really appreciate it. And other than that, find me on Instagram, Gary Maloney 13. I tend to use that the most out of all the social media platforms. I mean, you know, one thing I'll say about this, it brings so many new friends, people together, because when I was on that Tenerife holiday, Craig, the amount of messages that I get from Tottenham fans off the back of being on this podcast is unbelievable. So I find myself watching, if I'm not at the game, I find myself watching the game and I'm responding to so many people in the messages now, but I absolutely love it. You know, it's like a whole separate thing, isn't it? It's brilliant. So yeah, you find me there. Unfortunately, on Sunday, I'm not going to be at the game or watching it because, you know, I've got to do the family thing and go Fort Park this Sunday. So that's going to be, it's going to be a difficult one. So I'm going to be on my phone and I'll have TalkSport on and stuff. But obviously, when I get home, I'll watch it. And you know, the following day, I like to watch. Does anyone else watch Tottenham Uncut? You know, when they do the extended version and stuff. Do you watch that? It comes out the following day.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, I can't wait for when you get a big win against City or Villa, and then it's normally about a 10-minute video, isn't it? I love it, and I'll be doing the same thing on Monday after the Ipswich game, all the build up and everything. So yeah, love it.
And I hope you get your luggage back soon, Gary. Definitely.
Craig, she just came down and said they found it, so we are getting it back. So obviously we spoke before we came on channel and it's not been the best of days, but it's ending a lot better. And part of that is talking to you lovely people on the podcast. So brilliant. Loved it.
Good.
And have I been on with you before, Becky? I think maybe once.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoy being on there with you. It's nice to see a different face. Not that I don't like your face, Ricky.
Sodja.
Sodja.
Yeah, right. See you later, Gary. Thanks for coming.
Here once in a while.
Rick, thanks for coming on as always, mate. Absolute star. What's going on in your life? Where can people find you?
No, always an honor and a pleasure, my friend. Firstly, whoever that was from Kenya, Nairobi, I'll say Jambo to you because that's my mum's side of the family, you know, out there in Kenya. So, Wilson, I'm sending you big love, okay? I'm sending you big love.
Love it.
That's crazy that they're watching in Nairobi, bro. That's nuts.
Mad.
Crazy. Love this pod. Love being on with you beautiful people. I've just got cast in a film. So I'm at the end of this month.
Well done.
In a film. Thank you, brother. It's called Jingle All the Sleigh. And yeah, it's a really fun script. I don't know what. Love, man. Love Wilson. I don't know what I can say right now, so I won't say much. But it's
so would that come out next year? Next Christmas?
Come out, yeah. So
next
we're filming it this year for next year. So yeah, but it's a great script, and it's a really nice part. That's why I'm growing my hair now, so you won't see me with a haircut for a while. That should be fun. And it's a really fun character, man. So I'm looking forward to it. So I'll be doing that end of this month up until just before Christmas, and then cracking on, my friend.
Ricky,
I'll be on here as well.
That part in the film, Craig had to audition for that as well, but they said the same thing: grow your hair. So
I wouldn't have any.
They told me that they're filming it.
You know I love you, Craig. You know I love you.
Ricky, honestly, that's brilliant. It could be the new Christmas film. You know, we like the Polar Express and Christmas Chronicles, but this could be the new one that goes on the telly every Christmas Eve. So
there you go.
Yeah,
I mean, I do have a couple out there already: Princess Switch 2 and Princess Switch 3. If you want to get your Christmas groove on Netflix, check them out. We're there.
Love
but
it.
Yeah, this one is going to be a little more adult as well. A lot of jokes.
Okay.
a bit risky, a bit risky.
Right.
There's a lot going on. There ain't that going on, Gaz. Stop it, because no advice on set or extras. All right, we're good. It's not that type of show. But yeah, just a little bit more adult, man. So it should be a really fun one.
Nice one. Well, I'll be looking forward to that, Rick. Becky, finally with you. Thanks very much for coming back on. Where can people find you and what you're up to?
Thanks again for having me on. When Chris kind of sent me a message, he was like, which games are you at and which games are you not at? And I went, well, I'm definitely not going to Galatasaray because I probably struggle to get back to school tomorrow. I'm not on that one. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Like, I think, like we said, kind of about 6 o'clock, I was thinking, oh, blimey, this is going to be hard work, but it wasn't. You know, Spurs kind of did their best to make it better for us. But yeah, you know, I think, like Gary just said, the amount of people that come up to me at games and just say, hi, Becky. and sometimes I have absolutely no idea who they are, but I always kind of chat. It's lovely to have those kind of interactions. I think I've said before, they notice Jack sometimes as well, so it was kind of easy to spot us. But yeah, just seeing me at the South Stand, if you see me in the coach and also say hello. Paddy kind of said it there. The kind of tweet that I put earlier in the week about possibly waving scarves at the trumpet. The club got in contact today, so it's something that hopefully we can do. I think with it being Remembrance Sunday this week, and also it's a bit short notice now, but something hopefully that we can kind of do it in conjunction with THFC flags in future games, because I think it'd be amazing. When the trumpet's playing and we're all going, oh, when the Spurs, it would just be so cool to just have our scarves. It's not making much effort. Bring a scarf and wave it for that bit. So yeah, I think that's something that we can maybe kind of look into. That would be fantastic. I think nice and easy to do. But yeah, thanks for having me on. If you see me at games, say hello, and I'll be on soon when Spurs are at another away game, probably another European game, I think. But yeah, it's been great chatting. Thank you.
Lovely, great to have you back on, Becky. And yeah, it's weird actually, but people see me. I'm sure people recognise me, but they just look at me. I don't know if they're thinking, miserable sod, I ain't going to talk to him. I don't know what it is, but you see.
But you did get recognised loads, Craig, as well, didn't you? It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I say, they don't necessarily come up to me and say hello like they might do with Becky or yourself or Rick. It's just like they just look at me. So it's like, you think somebody's looking at you, thinking. So please, I don't buy it.
Life, though, Craig, you're a lot taller in real life, brother. People might know.
I know. I'm quite tall. I'm not like 7 foot, ridiculously tall, but I suppose, I do look. I'm sitting down, and so anyway.
Yeah.
Look,
and I'm standing
up.
I'm standing up.
What's going on?
I'm not like what's that bloke out of the in-betweeners? Jeff Davis, is it? Greg Davis?
Greg Davis. Yeah.
Not quite as tall as Greg Davis, but there you go. Right, anyway, look, we'll let everybody go now. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Another Tottenham loss, but it's not the end of the world. Let's put things right on Sunday at Ipswich. So thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Come on, you Spurs.
Come.